Welcome to the DePIN State. I'm your host, Nick Hawks. On today's show, we've got Ken Bell, lead dev over at ScPrime. This episode is sponsored by Goldhawks & Associates, the most experienced DePIN consultancy in the space. We help projects develop strategy, messaging, and incentives. We'll have a little bit more on us later in the show. Before we get started, make sure you hit the like, subscribe, smash the bell, all the things that help us keep bringing great guests like Ken to you. Ken, thanks so much for coming on, man.
Hey, happy to be here.
I'm psyched to have you on. It's always good to have new DePIN projects on that I haven't taken a ton of time to really get to know. There's so many of them that it's really cool to kind of do these intros for different projects with you. But let's start off before we get to ScPrime with you. Kind of who are you? How'd you get to where you are now?
Myself and a couple of other folks got involved in crypto back around the 2016, 2017 timeframe. And I came out of a business where storage was actually very big, and so were a couple of the other people that I kind of met up with. And when we started looking into crypto, aside from Bitcoin, the only thing that really made sense to us was storage. There were a lot of other things going on. Fintech really was never our background or any of that sort of stuff. So we all ended up on another project, and we kind of started to disagree with their direction and so forth. Opportunities arose, and we found an opportunity to go off and start our own storage project. And so that's kind of what we did. My background all stretches all the way back to building and developing video production workstations and content creation stations, way back into even the before times when, Apples weren't even the thing. It was Commodore 64.
Okay, old school.
So storage has always been near and dear to my heart.
Okay, and that's a nice segue into just tell me what ScPrime is. Looks like it's distributed cloud, but walk me through it.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. ScPrime is distributed cloud storage, and we do call it that instead of, we sort of has eschewed the decentralized sort of moniker, not because we don't appreciate and believe and totally follow it, but because distributed is more descriptive of what it is we're really doing today. Thousands of passive income earning storage touch points make up a global distributed data center from which businesses then create these virtual private data centers. So we fulfill the promise of cloud with the control of on-premise. In other words, when somebody uses AWS, they're just surrendering a whole copy of their data to Jeff Bezos, right? When they use our network, what ends up happening is they build their own virtual private data center by stitching together a number of the devices that are out there on our network. We never see their data, we never see their metadata, and they have full control over that and higher security, higher performance, and all of the benefits that come from that.
Okay, so the basic kind of value prop is that you're not giving this to a single organization. You're distributing your data amongst a bunch of people who, I mean, frankly, probably don't have the tech savvy to dig into it. And even if they did, it's pretty safe. And then you're creating your own virtual data center. How does that compare if I'm going to use AWS? Is ScPrime faster? Is it way cheaper? Is it way more secure? Like, what are the big points that make it stand out?
There's one key premise that goes into all of the storage projects, and that ultimately is enormous, and it goes all the way back to the 1980s. It's called erasure coding. And what erasure coding is it's this process of splitting data into a bunch of little chunks. And it originally was used extensively on like CD-ROMs. So like if you got a scratch on a CD-ROM, you'd still be able to find the data to play the music, right? And so what it naturally does for distributed storage is it splits that data up into discrete objects that can then be sent out to all of these thousands of individual nodes. When you send something to AWS, you send one whole copy, right? And then what they then do is they turn around and immediately replicate that whole copy to another, what they call an availability zone, just another building, essentially. Okay. Then they do some math trickery, right? They say they have 11 nines of durability, which just means that they're saying, your data won't get lost. But what they do is they erasure code it inside those two facilities. So they scatter the data to hundreds or thousands of different servers inside one building. Well, what are the odds that two things could fail at the same time? Two buildings, two AWS data centers. Seems pretty high since it happens almost every year, right? You see some story about it. In our case, what happens is that the data is split up into hundreds of individual discrete pieces, sent off to all these passive income earners. It's always encrypted at the customer side. It's encrypted in transit. So it gets there. It's literally unhackable. The people that own these nodes have no ability to see the data, and they only have like 1/120th of the little piece anyway. And so all your data lives on these individual nodes out there. But that starts to provide a bunch of the benefits you just described. So if you've ever used like BitTorrent or any of the torrent technologies, once you start splitting things up into hundreds of pieces and sending them out, you can then goal seek for the highest performance. And by goal seeking for the highest performance, we blow AWS away both on upload and download, right? So AWS, I'll just give you an example. They have this technology called Snowball, where they will send out a device. And even if you're a big organization, they'll send a semi truck out to your facility with servers in it to upload your data on a fast connection, right? And then they take it back and put it into their deal. We don't really need that, right? Because our stuff is so much faster and more performant going to the data center, to the individual nodes, that it's just not really a necessity. We can do it, but it's not needed. Security, performance, durability, availability, we beat them on virtually every vector.
Dang, do you think Jeff is worried about ScPrime, or do you think he knows about it? Or are they thinking like, is there a way, this is kind of always question that Max and I have, is there a way for these Web 2 companies to pivot and say like, oh, what ScPrime is doing is cool, let's just do that ourselves?
Well, we did kind of see that. I know you guys are Helium dudes, and we did kind of see that with AWS moving into the IoT space with some of the stuff. And I think it's a lot harder for them to do what we're doing. To be frank about it, I talk a lot about AWS, but if you really want to know who the competitor that I'm most interested in, it's Cloudflare. Because Cloudflare has this service called R2, which is quite similar to what, the crypto decentralized folks are doing, what we're doing. The only difference is that they own all the nodes, right? So they're doing massive distribution, but they're doing it in a completely and totally decentralized way. So I do think that the big players, well, I mean, we're in the Google for Startups partner program right now, and they have a number of like Solana and Polkadot and a few other partnerships that they're deeply involved in. I don't know what the extent of it is, but I just think ultimately, if it means surrendering their data centers, I don't think that ultimately that's a thing. It costs them $600 million to build a building, so it's hard to see how they're going to walk away from that.
Probably not going to throw that one away. Okay. All right. Let's take a quick break, talk about today's sponsor, GoldHawks & Associates. We're a DePIN consultant firm helping projects with strategy, messaging, and token incentives. We run a blog for founders over at goldandhawks.com, produce this show, and most importantly, work with the core teams and communities of your favorite projects in the space to ensure tokenomics and incentives are fully aligned to build out some of the most badass physical infrastructure networks in the world. If your project needs help in any of these, check out goldandhawks.com. Okay, Ken, so I can see where we're looking at like, okay, this is a cool alternative to AWS. Maybe you're going after the Cloudflare stuff too. You've got some good options there. For folks watching this who want to participate, kind of walk me through how they might do that, including whatever fancy stuff you have on your desk right now.
I think the helium story is actually really interesting to us. And, we kind of caught on to it back in 2021. What ended up happening with us, we didn't have the storage side of the house yet quite ready in 2021, but we had created a solid node for users to stand up capacity on our network by that time. So what happened is in late 2021, when helium was, in the midst of its giant go from 20,000 to a million node type, I guess, fastest network assembly in history. Pretty much got to take your hat off to that. But the deal is we got a small rush at the end of 2021 with actually this device that's right behind me, which is just a little 4-bay NAS that we designed that has very custom software to run this node. We incentivized it heavily with our tokens, and that's our unfair crypto advantage. But what wasn't ready to go at that point was the storage, right? So we couldn't really get the product usage to take care of these people. So for the last 2 years, they've been essentially living off the incentives, and everybody understands that you can't do that forever, that sooner or later, real product market fit has to step in. And so that's where we are now. The storage is done. It's operational. And what we have today, which, as you mentioned, is, talking about a kind of a cool device. This is, I don't know if you can actually see this clearly, but this is our new device. This is called the Relayer XM. What happens is when you stand up our product, when you want to use our product, what you have to do is you have to run a little server in your own on-premise installation called a relayer. And the relayer lets you assemble all of the nodes together to create your own VPD and then access our network and have full control over it. Even though it's pretty simple to set up, and we have a lot of recipes on our websites to allow people to just build them on whatever they want. What we've kind of concluded now is that this sort of device is really necessary. And so what this device is, it's actually a combo. It's a relayer. So a business can pull this thing down, plug it in, and immediately connect up whatever S3 application they currently use, like VM or Commvault or whatever, tools that they use. And there's like 50,000 apps out there that are S3 compatible. But it also has an XMiner on it, which is our passive income node. And what we really want to see happen is every customer, every business customer that uses our cloud storage, we would like them to run a node, right? And it does two things. First of all, it improves the distribution and, the durability of the network and, expands the network. But at the same time, for the customer, it helps them over time lower the total cost of ownership, because as they take in storage from other people and earn revenues on these XMiner nodes, they can turn around and use those revenues to pay for their own storage. So we're really sort of seizing the means of production here, and by doing that, at the end of the day, it becomes sort of a virtuous cycle, right? And so all these businesses end up storing on each other's nodes, thousands and tens of thousands of them across the planet. And at the end of the day, what ends up happening is they are the ones that benefit from all the revenues. We don't actually make in the development shop, we don't actually make money off the storage. That's all passed through to the passive income earners.
Huh. Okay, cool. So, and then this new box, what does this thing run versus what the original box ran? Kind of how does that work? You order it, it shows up, do you plug it in, Ethernet, and then you're done, or is there some extra setup to it? What does that look like?
It's really cool. It's about to start shipping here in the next week, and we've shown the software interface already that we have on it. It's got like a home assistant sort of design to it, so you can plug in a whole bunch of add-ons. You can put in all sorts of really cool different modules to sort of help out. But at the core, it's got these two pieces that are already configured. So it literally is a plug and play experience. The neat thing about the device, you can go back and watch the video later and zoom in on it. Dual RJ45 Ethernet, but dual SFP plus, so up to dual 10G. And it's got Thunderbolt USB-C. So essentially, if you wanted to, you could go all the way up to 40 gigabyte networking on there. So this device is really built powerfully for a business. And our customers, by the way, we are a B2B play. We're not really, we will take in retail customers, but we're primarily focusing right now on going after what we call managed service providers. These are businesses that sell and help manage cloud for other companies. So this device right here, typically you buy it, plug it in, go through a couple of setup steps. It's roughly, pretty well configured, about $1,500. These things were weird because we way overpriced these because of the huge amount of incentives tokens that were on them.
Sure.
So that was an interesting strategy, but the new one is actually, I think, going to be a lot more conducive to the millions of people that we expect to come on board over the next couple of years.
Okay. And if you're looking for kind of, let's say, business level internet, so fast and stable, I've got fiber to the house, so 500 up, 500 down, like nothing crazy, what I would assume is like generally normal for the developed world. Is that something that, I mean, that's certainly not 10 gigs. Is that something you guys are looking for, or you're more like, no, we don't really want kind of one-off home stuff? I think you said this, I just want to make sure. We're more looking for folks who are running whatever and these managed services are, and they've already got a data center, they've just got some extra spare bays, they're going to plug those in.
For the customers themselves, the ones using the storage, you're going to want to have a fast pipe. I mean, that's just the nature of it. If you don't have a fast pipe, and all you're really using it for is to do like your weekly backups to the network every week, and they happen overnight or whatever, then it's not really an issue. You can have whatever speed you want. For the passive income earners, the people that buy the device just to run the capacity, just to provide network capacity, to be frank about it, they can have standard residential internet. Like I have 30 megabit up right now, right? So it's tiny. But what happens is, because of that torrent-like behavior, right? There's very little of any individual data stream that's being served up from my device at any given time. Now, as I fill a device up and there gets to be a lot more activity, yeah, you might start to see that, but you'll be making a lot more money at that point, right? So once you're making a lot more money, then you'll have to make a decision. Well, do I call the ISP and upgrade my service, or, is it worth it yet to do that? So we think it's really, in some ways, continuing back to that helium thing. I think even though it's been a very tough bear market for us, right, to kind of grind through, we kind of think that having our product ready now going into this next phase of the market really sets us up well, because what we should be able to do is we should be able to match storage usage with the oncoming, nodes that the passive earners are going to want to do, versus like putting a million nodes out there and then saying, well, we don't have any business yet. But hats off, they went out and got a lot of business. So, it's it's a thing.
There are all these projects are figuring out how to do it in different ways. Okay. Well, that probably brings us to the last question that we traditionally ask, is that Goldhawks and Associates, we're always preaching the importance of structure, story, and catalyst for projects. So what does a project look like? What is kind of a story you're telling? How does someone understand it? And then what's going to be the catalyst? And in Helium's case, the catalyst was this kind of perfect storm of crypto coming in, and it was easy to do for people, and it was just kind of complicated enough that it seemed like a secret, but it wasn't so complicated you couldn't actually do it. And there's definitely some nerd stuff going on the antenna side. What do you think will be the catalyst that takes ScPrime from where it is to where it's eventually going? Are you guys just waiting for the market to turn? Is there something specific you're like, oh, when this happens, we're going to go gangbusters?
Yeah, no, we've shown a chart, right, almost from day one. It came from Statista, but other of these, sites have come up with similar kinds of models. And what they all look at, first of all, one of the things about object storage, it's super, important and very well used, and there's a ton of it, and there's a ton needed, and so forth. But it always kind of gets subsumed under, the hot stuff. Like right now, the hot stuff is AI. So when they talk about data centers, it's all about GPUs, and it's all about that. That's not what we're doing. What we're doing is plumbing. We're building out networks for people to store backups and archives and all of the long-term stuff that they need to put up online. So when you look at that, what happens is everything gets up-res. Like this video right now that we're watching, if this was 10 years ago, this video would have been, 480p, right? But as you go up in resolution, it isn't like a doubling. It's usually like a quadrupling or an exponential growth in resolution. And so there's more data that gets thrown off and sent up to these things. And video surveillance, by the way, is a huge part of the target market that we're going after. But what happens when you look at the charts of the object storage use today versus what's coming in the next 5, 10, 15 years, we're still like in those tiny little bars, and we haven't seen the Ray Kurzweil exponential hockey stick yet. So from our purposes, what we kind of feel, we always say it's a marathon, not a sprint, and we just need to be there. All boats are going to rise. We think we'll have the best strategy, so we should rise, pretty well. And, it's not really a matter of taking over and becoming the number one, because the world's going to need every single ounce of storage it can find over the next decade. And we just think we're going to have one of the best solutions for providing that.
Okay. Rad. Dig it. I'll put links down in the description to both ScPrime and XMiner. But Ken, thanks so much for making the time to come on today. I know you guys are busy, so appreciate you coming on and explaining to us.
Hey, really appreciate you guys giving us the chance.